Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 18-Minute Experts, the podcast that dives into the minds of industry leaders in the wonderful world of group benefits. I'm your host, Matt Butters, and today I'm joined by an industry thought leader who is ready to share their experiences and insights on the topic of behavioral and communication styles. But before we jump into the conversation, a quick reminder to our listeners. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe on Spotify and YouTube. You can also catch us at www.peoplecorporation.com/18minexperts. If you're feeling ultra generous, please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback guides us as we endeavor to provide the best benefits-focused content. Now, grab your headphones and let's jump in. So I'm here with Karin Pooley, VP of Senior Management and Executive Search with People Corporation. Karin, tell me a little bit about what you do and how you arrived in such a cool role with People Corporation.
Good morning, Matthew. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast. I love talking about assessments and executive search. I've been with People First, which is a division of People Corporation. So we're the HR solutions practice of People Corporation. And I lead the senior management and executive search practice. I've been doing that for 20 years now with our organization, but I've been in the search and recruitment industry for well over 20 years. So I've always worked on behalf of organizations, helping them find and assess great talent.
So it's obviously a really important role, right? When your clients have those kind of openings, it's pretty important that they fill them with not only competent individuals in the executive and senior management roles, but they want to do it in a timely manner. So what kind of tools, what kind of strategies do you use to help make those connections between your clients and the prospective executives and senior managers that you have access to?
Well, there's lots of strategies and tools that we use, but first and foremost, it starts with spending time with our client and understanding their current state, right? What is their organizational structure? What is their corporate structure? What is their strategic plan? What level of talent and competencies are they looking to add into their organization? So once we really spend some time listening to our clients, learning a lot about them, learning about their corporate culture, from there we're able to put the strategies and tools together. So these tools, there could be many of them. They start with competency-based interviews. They start with stakeholder engagement, 360 feedback, so collecting a lot of information and data on candidates from their peers and their networks and their employers and leaders, and then off to psychometric or behavioral, emotional intelligence and competency-based assessments, which is more the tool side of the recruitment and assessment process.
So what are these psychometric, these behavioral assessments? What are they? And why do companies kind of use those as part of this process?
So I first got introduced to assessments when really it was about 25 years ago when I first joined this profession. And I was doing some very, very, very high volume staffing for contact centers. So filling 250 positions per month, inbound, outbound call center agents, right? And this particular organization, we really needed to focus on benchmarking talent and understanding why turnover happens in roles like that. Because as you can imagine, there's very, very high turnover roles. So we introduced behavioral assessments as part of the tool to help us in determining the, let's call it ideal candidate profile as another tool to recruitment. So behavioral assessments help us understand our work behaviors. I often like to refer to it with my clients and candidates as it's our work DNA. It's really how we're hardwired to perform and interact day to day. It's how we communicate. It can tell us about our leadership style, how we respond to pressure and manage pressure. What are our motivations? What are our fears, right, in the workplace? So it also helps guide the recruitment process in terms of determining the right fit, right? Assessments will show us whether or not an individual is very highly analytical or they are predisposed to working with people on a day-to-day basis. So the recruitment process, when you're interviewing candidates, that's focusing on the hard skills, right? Like that's the technical skills. Recruiters are trying to determine what is the predictor. Does past performance help predict future success, right? Is that demonstrated performance there? The behavioral assessments get us to call it the soft skills of the individual, right? Their interpersonal skills, their communication skills. So that's the behavioral assessments.
So that's super interesting, right? Because I think oftentimes a lot of people will communicate with somebody, whether it's in their personal life or in their professional life, and they will automatically assume that, the way I'm being spoken to or the way I'm communicating with this individual is a reflection of what this person thinks of me. And what you're kind of saying is it's not necessarily the case, right? There might be some indicators or some communication styles or behavioral styles that will dictate how a person interacts with everybody, and that it's not, specific to each person that they're communicating with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fundamentally believe that if every organization would embrace assessments and have their staff go through assessments, and then if we were all vulnerable enough to share our assessments, I fundamentally believe conflict in the workplace would be minimized, right? We are who we are. That's why I like to refer to it as our work DNA. We all have certain styles and traits that we're just not going to really change. But if you understood some of those traits of each other, you'd have a much better and probably an easier time communicating with each other and appreciating that's just who Matthew is. That's what Matthew's style is, right? And then the other assessment that's really important, and especially in leadership positions, any position where you're managing staff, is emotional intelligence, which is the other assessment we use. And emotional intelligence, again, simply put, is just it's our self-awareness, right? So some folks have a really high level of self-awareness, and some folks don't have a high level of self-awareness,
That's the
right?
truth.
It's
Yep.
not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a right. It's not a wrong. Same with the behavioral assessments. It's just who we are. So that also factors into it as well with emotional intelligence is, am I aware of how my emotions are affecting Matthew at this particular time? And am I empathetic to Matthew's emotions as well? So the two of them combined really makes for a powerful tool for recruitment, for onboarding new employees, coaching, development, everything.
So this is super interesting to me too, right? Many years ago, I took one of these psychometric tests as part of a hiring process. I never got to see the results. So, that's a bit unique because it would be really interesting for me to know what my styles were so I can maybe adapt or try to recognize those in others. Would you be able to provide maybe some examples of different behavioral or personality styles that the test results would dictate so that we can kind of maybe look out for those in people that we're communicating with, working with, or live with?
So the assessment that I've used for many, many, many years is very similar to the DISC assessment. It is a behavioral-based personality assessment, lots of different ways of referring to it. And the DISC assessment has 4 different styles, right? And they are D, which is dominance, I, which is influence, S, which is steadiness, and C, which is compliance or conscientiousness, depending on which tool that you're using. And so, if you think of the styles that I just described, and you think of the D style dominance, it's really pretty self-explanatory, right? The definition of dominance, right? When you look it up, is authority. It's being dominant. It's having authority and control. Whereas the I style influence is to affect, to sway, to convince somebody to your point of view. The next style is S, which is steadiness. Again, steadiness is an individual that is very even keeled, right? They tend to have a high team preference, right? And then the C is conscientiousness or compliance. And if you look at the word compliance, you look at the C style, again, self explanatory compliance. Live in the world of benefits, right? Tends to be all facts, a lot of facts and data, a lot of
Yeah.
I's dotted, T's crossed, highly analytical. That's a C style. So when you bring these together, and what the assessments will do is they're going to tell me where your most dominant factors are, styles, and where your least factors or styles are. And so it's a tool to inform you of who an individual is. It's to inform you of the recruitment that you're doing and whether or not this person could be the right fit. And at the same time, it allows you that inner insight to an individual and how they're going to behave in the workplace.
Yeah, I can see that information being super valuable, right? And obviously, the presence of a psychometric test and the results aren't going to be available to absolutely everybody, right? They have a practical use in your world. But if we're kind of trying to spin it off a little bit, and let's say we're looking at it from my perspective in my personal day-to-day interactions, whether it's working in the insurance world or working with friends and family, would you be able to, outside of the actual formal evaluations, how would I go about recognizing some of these different styles in people that I work with or that I live with? Are there keys to look for? Are there certain traits that they have that would help me to identify how they like to communicate or their personality style?
So most organizations, when you're using a tool, you have to go through a lot of training and certification, right? Which what I have gone through over the years. But there are ways that you can observe people's behavior, and I think when I share some of them with you, you're going to have that aha moment of, okay, yeah, I know who those folks are. I know who some of these styles are within my
And we
teammates,
won't
right?
say any names yet, but
Absolutely not, right? But so first, what you do is you just observe behaviors, right? What does this person talk about? Are they more focused on I've done this, I can do this, or is their communication style more about team and more about family? And do they think more about the then and the now or the future? You can look at their body language, right? Do they tend to be closed off? Do they have a firm handshake? Another way to look at it when you're observing somebody and communicating with them is, are they very task focused in how they talk about the day to day, and do they talk about facts and data and numbers a lot? Do they stop and process and think, right? So those are really great ways of identifying, as you're observing the behaviors of the person, to try and read the styles, right? So once you've observed them, and then you just do your internal assessment, right? I would have done that, Matthew, when I first met you. I would have been trying
I
to
didn't
figure out where
see. I
where
didn't know I
is
was
Matthew?
I didn't know I was under review. I would have maybe
Yeah.
tweaked it a little bit, but I guess that's kind of good, right? Because if you're able to take that knowledge and apply it to your data, it doesn't have to be about hiring, right? It could be about, from a sales perspective. A lot of our listeners are in the advisor world. From an insurance perspective, building rapport with their clients. If they're able to take this information that you're sharing today, maybe recognize some of these traits in their prospective clients or their existing clients.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is to help build rapport, right? To
Mm-hmm.
really deepen those relationships. So assuming we go out there on the street, we don't have access to a psychometric testing, but we take some of the information you've provided today and we recognize some of these traits that you just outlined. How do we best establish rapport with some of these people? Is there
Mm-hmm.
is there a strategy that we could maybe use in our day to day that would help us in that regard?
Well, 100%. And I wasn't joking when I said that when I first met you, I was actually trying to figure out what your style was, because that's what I do all the time, right? My job is I work with external clients every single day. So I do my best to try and speed read them right away so that I can get a sense of what their style is.
Karin, thanks so much for spending time with me today. And for everybody that's listening, I had a blast. I really hope that you did too. That's all the time we have today, but please join us next time for part 2 with Karin Pooley. And there you have it, folks. Another episode of 18-Minute Experts is in the books. Remember, the insights shared here are just the beginning of our journey together. To stay updated on future episodes, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or Spotify. When it comes to navigating the complexities of group benefits, knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered. Until next time.